Two mates, same job, same income for years, both nurses, both earning roughly the same wage the whole way through. One of them has built a super balance that is double the other one's. Same job, same income, half the balance. That is not luck. That is not bad timing in the market. That is two completely different sets of decisions made over time, and most people do not realize how much those decisions actually cost until years have already gone by. Whatever stage you are at right now, this video matters to you, because the earlier you understand this, the more time you get to fix it, and the closer you are to retirement, the more urgent it becomes. According to ASFE, in February 2026, a single person needs around $630,000 in super for a comfortable retirement. A couple needs around $730,000. That funds a retirement income of about $51,000 a year for a single person. Most Australians are nowhere near that number by the time they need it. And here's the uncomfortable truth. It is usually not because they did not earn enough. It is because of three things nobody explained to them properly. Let's start with the first one. The first mistake is not using salary sacrifice or personal deductible contributions. Salary sacrifice means asking your employer to put extra money into your super before tax touches it. A personal deductible contribution works a bit differently. You put the money in yourself, then claim it as a tax deduction at tax time. Either way, that money gets taxed at 15% going into your super. Compare that to paying 32 or even 37% income tax on the same dollar in your pay packet. That gap is not small. Let's put a real number on it. Say you earn $90,000 a year and you salary sacrifice $5,000. Outside super, that $5,000 would have been taxed at 32.5%. Inside super, it is taxed at 15%. That is roughly $875 saved on tax in a single year, just from changing how the money arrives. Do that every year for 10 years, and you are not just saving tax once, you are giving that extra money a decade to grow as well. Now here's where it gets interesting. The second mistake is not understanding the power of compounding. Money in super does not just sit there. It grows, and then the growth grows. The earlier that extra money goes in, the longer it has to compound. But here's the thing. Even if you are starting later than you would like, you almost certainly still have more time than you think. Here's a simple way to picture it. $10,000 sitting in super for 20 years at an average growth rate of around 8% does not just become $20,000. It becomes closer to $46,000. That is the difference between money that just sits there and money that actually works. Most people assume compounding is something for people in their 20s. It is not. It works at any age. It just works harder the earlier you start and the longer you leave it alone. Put it another way. Even if you only have 10 years left until you retire, an extra $5,000 contributed today still has a decade to grow before you need it. Over 10 years at 8%, that $5,000 becomes close to $10,800. You did not work for that growth. Your money did the work simply by being given time. But here's the catch. None of this works if the third mistake is also happening. The third mistake is treating super as set and forget. Most Australians choose a default investment option when they start a job and never look at it again. For decades, sometimes for their entire working life. Here's something most people don't realize. Many of those default options get more conservative as you age, sometimes earlier than they actually need to. Depending on how far off retirement you are, you might still have a long time horizon ahead of you. That is not a 1 or 2 year horizon where you need to be sitting in cash. People hear the word risk and panic, but let's run the actual numbers. The ASX 200 has delivered an average total return of around 9 to 10% a year over the long term, including dividends. The S&P 500 has done something similar over decades. Think about what that means in practice. A more conservative option might average around 4 to 5% a year. A growth option invested in shares might average around 8 to 9% a year. Over 20 years on the same starting balance, that difference alone can mean a retirement balance that is genuinely double the size. Same contributions, same years worked, completely different outcome, just from the option ticked on a form years ago. Markets go up and down year to year, that is true. But across long periods, market-facing assets inside super have historically rewarded people who stayed invested in them. Being too conservative, whatever your age, when you might still have years or even decades of growth ahead, can quietly cost you far more than a market downturn ever would. It is worth checking what option your super is actually sitting in right now, because for many people, it is still the default they were placed in on day one, and it may no longer suit how many years they actually have left. Let's make this real with one more example, because numbers in the abstract do not land the same way numbers attached to a person do. Picture someone on $90,000 a year, 10 years out from retirement, sitting in a default balanced option and not salary sacrificing a cent. Now picture the exact same person, same job, same income, but they salary sacrifice $5,000 a year and they move into a growth option suited to their actual time horizon. Over 10 years, the tax savings alone add up to more than $8,000 that would otherwise have gone to the tax office. The extra contributions, growing at a higher rate inside a growth option instead of a conservative one, compound into a noticeably larger balance again on top of that. Add it together and the gap between these two people, who earned exactly the same income for exactly the same number of years, can run into the tens of thousands of dollars by the time they retire. Same job, same pay slip, completely different retirement. That is the real cost of doing nothing. It is not dramatic in any single year. Nobody notices it happening. It just quietly compounds in the background year after year, until one day you check your balance and you cannot quite explain the gap. So let's bring it all together. Salary sacrifice and personal deductible contributions take advantage of the 15% tax concession instead of paying full income tax. Compounding still has time to work for you, no matter what age you are starting to pay attention. And your investment option needs to actually match your real time horizon, not just sit on default because nobody ever looked at it. Remember those two mates from the start, the ones with completely different balances despite identical incomes. The difference between them was never income. It was these three things, applied or ignored, year after year. You cannot get back the years that have already passed, but you still have years left, and in super years are the most valuable asset you have. The best time to fix this was years ago. The second best time is right now. Thanks so much for watching. If this helped you look at your own super a bit differently, do me a favor and hit like. It genuinely helps this video reach more Australians who need to hear it. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next one. See you in the next video.